What's up, everybody? Welcome to More Than a Statistic. Glad to have y'all in tonight for episode 18. That's wild.
That's
episode
a lot.
18. I'm Michael, grateful believer and follower of Jesus Christ, recovered drug addict and alcoholic.
Hi, my name's Justin. Been many things, and we're going to talk about that tonight. The show's on labels, and I've been a lot of things, but I'm changing my label myself, and I'm going to make that label. I'm on the path to servitude. That's what my new label I want to be. But I'm grateful to be here with you tonight. Also, before we get started, I'd like to announce that I got to go to this ministry by meeting Jessica. We arranged that place because she was the first person that we didn't personally know yet, and she knows the person that ran that place at the time. Michael has had some previous experience there. He got to be a part of it. But that night when I first walked in, that was the first time I'd ever been on the property. And I've told a couple of people, like, something in me changed that night when I got to walk into that place and I got to see everything that was going on firsthand. You know, the first thing we was hit with was the pile of shoes, and then it was all the clothes, and then we went on in and it was food. And then I found out just through talking and trying to get comfortable with Jessica that all this other stuff that she does. She cuts hair, she allows them to have an address, helps them get back their legal documents. She's one of the only woman centers in the community. And it really, being there made me feel so grateful for where I was at that point in time. And but it left a huge hole in me because I seen, places like this was needed in the first place, and it was there. And something really stirred in me after following her socials and through talking about Jessica's episode, other people being like, hey, you was at Carecuts, and we've met all these other people that knew Miss Marty. I started following her on the social medias, and I started seeing firsthand, like, every single day how much they do.
Right.
And that's one of the places that, honestly, there's so much scams and so many charities to donate to and this stuff, that this is the first place where I've seen 100%. It's coming in and going directly to the people that need it.
Legit hands and feet.
And there's a huge need in that. And she's been asking, in desperate need of insulated boots for men and women, just a lot of winter clothes, anything like that. So I asked my employer, would that be something that they'd be interested in helping me set up as a drop box to where maybe our employees could bring in and donate some items. But then I talked to Jessica, and she was super interested in helping with providing another drop-off location. And I got a couple of more we're working on to get nailed down. But I would like to announce that together with the Carecuts Ministry, with my company Sylvan, and with Handcuffs to Hope, that we're doing a community clothing drive. And if there's something you're interested in doing or donating, you can contact me or Michael until we do get actual places that we can drop stuff off, and we'd be happy to try to collect from you and do our part to take it down there. But this is a place that really could use it, and that the thing about it is, if you give it to it, they're really using it for what it's meant to be used for. And it's just really, it's not a lot that you get to see real angels on earth. I've only seen it with one other person, but when I seen what she had been called to do and what it has grown into, I was really impressed by that. So this is kind of our way of, we talk about all times about being the hands and feet. I told somebody that, I felt like that we were starting to be a little bit of a mouth, but we lack the hands and the feet. And that's what, this is a footway into us in that path towards servitude, like I talked about. It was just a simple little gesture laid on my heart. I asked questions, and like I told you, it must have been meant to happen because it was just resistance free. So if y'all like to help with that, it would be amazing.
Be awesome.
We thank you. You want to pick up? Go on the labels?
So tonight, we're going to be talking about labels. That's something that we all struggle with early in your recovery, early in whatever you might be battling. We've all went through a time where somebody said you wasn't enough. Somebody said we're just failures. I struggled with that. The failure, the constant screw up, the convict, the drug addict, and those are things that loom over us forever. And, you don't realize till you start putting in work of recovery that you realize how much of those labels actually weigh you down and become the stronghold to kind of muffle out any further progression.
It absolutely. I mean, it's one of the most, really, when I've become conscious of the idea of that and started thinking about, a lot of these that through my actions, I put a lot of labels on myself. Like, I've been a liar, I've been a cheater, I've been the addict, I've been a lot of bad. I've been called a lot of things, and it's not all been good. And the thing about those things is once, like through my actions especially, once that label was placed on me, I was so quick to accept it because, I did do that.
Right.
And I did so then I found myself just constantly turning into that slowly. And I think that that's a big thing, that when we go to rehabs, everybody's exhausted about what our mouths have told them. And they told me early in, it's all about your actions from this point on. And what's crazy is if you can begin to stack those. Like, I was a piece of crap, but I began stacking good actions, good decisions on good decisions. And now here we are 11 years later, my labels ain't the same as that guy that was sitting in the rehab,
Right.
And I'm more conscious of those being thrown around and tossed around because, like I said, sometimes they're not given by us, but sometimes other people put it on us. And
right, yeah.
so I did come up with, this is a problem as old as time, obviously, because I got a bunch of different verses where it talks about verses being given, people putting labels on themselves or of other people. In Numbers 13:33, the spies said that we're grasshoppers in our own eyes. Jeremiah 1:16 says, I do not know how to speak, I'm only youth. Luke 18:11, the Pharisees labeled himself righteous compared to others. Exodus 4:10, Moses labels himself slow to speech of tongue. Job 19:4, Job laments, my relatives have failed me, reflecting on how others defined him. Isaiah 6:5, Isaiah cries, woe is me, I'm ruined, labeling himself unclean. Ruth 1:12 says, call me Mara, labeling herself bitter. Matthew 6:22, Peter labels Jesus' path as unthinkable, defining it in his own experiences. And that one hit me especially the most with the man's pride and how, like, this man put a label on Jesus' walk because in our head we couldn't comprehend.
Right.
That's wild that it even happened to Jesus, obviously. Others placed all these labels upon him. So I guess it just has to be a tool of Satan.
Without a doubt. I mean, it's definitely, I feel like that's a definite stronghold of Satan's, because when he finds whatever weakness or whatever stronghold that I guess that he could put on us, but to make us continue to feel like we're not enough. Even though you're putting in the work, and even though you're trying to make it new, you're still holding on to that, right? So if you're still holding on to that, you can't really grow anymore. And so he's stifling you out there. And, it says in 2 Corinthians 5:17, therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. Old things have passed away. Behold, all things have become new. Now all things are of God, who has reconciled us to himself through Jesus Christ, and has given us a ministry of reconciliation. So that's basically, okay, so that's saying that all that's gone. Is the excuses going to go away from somebody's head? No. Is the trust automatically going to come back? No. But you're putting in the work. So when Christ is coming through us, that's showing that that's not me anymore.
Yep. It's through action.
Right. It's the action. And that's so big. I mean, because I kept reading through everything. I was looking in the Bible today, but I was looking in the big book, and the big book says the same thing. The big book teaches us that we have a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. So that means that we've got to constantly be aware of our actions daily. Are we improving, or are we staying stagnant? Or, because to shed that label, it says, I've called you by name, you are mine. So we're no longer that drug addict. You're no longer that convict that isn't worthy of good things. I'm a child of God now.
Yeah.
I've been redeemed. So I don't have to call myself the addict. I don't have to call myself the failure, the lost, the unworthy. I'm His. I'm chosen and I'm redeemed.
Amen.
And I mean, it's a hard thing though. Because golly, I mean, it's labels, brother.
Yeah.
I mean,
And just because we're a new creation in His eyes don't make us the new creation in everyone else's
Right.
eyes, in which a lot of those labels that it's hard to make people think a different way about you, regardless of if you was, especially for me, if you knew me 10, 15 years ago and you've not seen me since, you don't know me now. You know, like you know of me, but I'm not nearly the same. Like the mouth's still the same. I'm still loud and all the things, but the things that I'm doing in my life don't reflect the things that I used to do in my life. You know, I'm more worried about the servitude thing. Like my goals really ain't earthly anymore, as weird as that sounds, because the church let me down so much. And I've only had one thing that's not let me down, man. And I didn't always see it at the time, and I didn't always handle it the right way, but there's been one thing consistent, and that was Jesus. You know, he's been so, there's been so many times I could have been put through the ringer because I didn't handle something a certain way, or I didn't, but that's not what He's about. He just, I looked into that part too, is okay, that this is it. How does God see us? And that whole study that I did on that, it drew to a reflection of Him. Like He didn't say nothing else. It all internally went back to Him. And that's what we're trying to get to. You know, I'm not a light. I'm not anyone special. I'm just trying to reflect the light of Christ in my own life because He's been really good to me.
and I feel like when you're doing that with your actions and you're making a difference daily, when the old people that knew us before were trying to say, well, this was such and such, and this, I don't have to fight and argue to defend that anymore.
Not anymore.
Like, I feel like my actions, the way I move now, speaks for itself. You know, when you don't pop off as quick, when you step back and look at the big picture of something and break it down from that aspect versus going straight at it, you know, that in itself, I feel like that's the change.
I do too.
You know, because early in my recovery, I felt like I was always still having to defend it. You know, like, well, I have changed. I have actions, brother. You know, like you've made false promises and
Sure.
forever. Like, you can't blame me for having doubt.
Yep.
And I feel like that goes in, so not to get off track, the labels that we have, the labels that we have acquired, that starts to develop the resentments. I feel like that starts to develop the doubts and the fears of being progressive in your recovery, right? So it's like, okay, I want to do this, but I still have the fear of, am I going to be what they said I am? Am I not going to make it? Versus when we do the inventory, step 4 and 5, when we've done the inventory of finding our wrongdoings and then turning around making the amends, apologizing for our part, I feel like that lets go of a lot of the power of your labels.
It
right
does. Absolutely. When you learn to forgive, you know, and the big thing is when you get forgiveness, because
accepting your part.
When you get to the point of you saying out loud, look, I did this and I'm sorry, like that's a hard road to navigate for men. Like for some reason we're so bad at saying, hey brother, I did something really wrong and I'm sorry. And I remember how powerful going through that was going to these people that I hadn't done 100% right and being like, you know, I don't know how to make it right, but I can offer this to you right now. And you know, the crazy thing is God has restored some of them friendships that I thought, you know, I'd lost during that time of wrongdoing, because you're not when especially when you're living in the sin and you can't get it right. It seems like you meet some of the greatest people. You know, the ones like I was homeless, Michael, and a woman that didn't even know me took me in, but we were on drugs together, and it's something that's so powerful because I know that just because you're a drug addict don't make you a bad person, because some of those people while I was on the drugs, they went completely out of their way not even knowing me and doing stuff that at the time my family wouldn't even do for me.
Right.
So I know that they are not what their sin calls them. And that's why I want to do this podcast is I want y'all to understand that like I remember being stuck in it.
Yeah.
And you know, it gets to a part where it's not fun no more. And I know that we like to not talk about that part and we like to just keep on boom, boom, boom. But this life that I have today versus that life, you know, that life was just bringing chaos and death and destruction and decay. And I didn't have the heart for people back then. Like I wouldn't have started a clothing drive for anybody. That's when my life changed. Was something happened to me through meeting God that I really stepped out of my body and started thinking about things outside of my perception, because that perception had got me into a lot of trouble. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, because it's like, just like when you first got clean and you found that servant part of you, when you finally started wanting to help somebody else, that's when I knew that God was making a change. Because the same thing, because I was always so selfish and self-centered in whatever I done. I cared for people.
Yeah.
And I never wanted malice to come upon anybody. Like I didn't wish horrible things upon people, but I still wasn't going to take my time out to really
Go
help.
out of my way.
Yeah, I'm not going to go out of my way. When I got sober and I really started putting in the work and dealing with the baggage and the stuff that I was masking with the alcohol and the drugs, it was just all, it's like I keep saying it, like when I got sober, I realized I didn't have a drug and alcohol problem. I had a me problem. I didn't want to face life on life's terms. I didn't want to accept and acknowledge the things that had ever happened to me in my childhood and adolescence to make me become the way I became. So I used drugs and alcohol to numb that and not have to face that. And then when I finally got clean and put in the work and started unpeeling the layers of my trauma, I found that I really wanted to serve and help others without even notice. Like, I don't want the recognition for it. I didn't want the praise and be like, oh, you're doing a great thing. I like behind the scenes. You know what I'm saying? Like it says, don't let your right hand know what your left hand's doing. So I didn't want it, because then it's kind of turning into a me thing. Like, I want to help, but yeah, I kind of want the recognition too. I never wanted that. Like, that's when I knew that like God was doing a greater thing. Yeah, it was outside the box of that.
Absolutely. And that mine kind of fell into was, early in I would go around speaking a lot in the NA meetings, and that's where I found, you know, the seeing the light, and the ones that were just there after a couple of days of coming out of rehab. And when you say a year or two to them, that's just,
a long time.
Oh my gosh, you know, and just slowly meeting people in life. And as of late, it's been the opposite. It's been because I've lost so many of them. You know, they're not making it to the rooms anymore, it seems like. They don't even get a chance to sit in the chair. Like, some of them's dying before they ever get to find recovery. So that's why I took it another step, is just sick of watching people ignore the problem, for one, and for two, just not doing anything about the problem. Not letting these people know that I still see you as a human. You know, the internet might call you all these things, and your family might call you all these things, but you're still a human in there. And we just want you to find this recovery that we're talking about. Everything that's come out of my mouth is something that I have personally went through, and I can't quote you the Bible like a lot of people can, so I have to rely on that. Everything's personal with me. Everything's personal coming out of His mouth. But the thing about it is it's universal in everything. It's not just drug addiction. It's in your relationship with God. This tool over here works to help get this a little better. You know, it seems like He allowed me to go through that. He allowed me to come out of that, but I picked up all these tools that I've finally gotten organized, and I'm starting to learn how to use, and I'm navigating these new waters. And it's because I prayed about, let me be a servant. What are ways? And He's given.
Right.
And now that's what He does. He just gives and gives and gives. And that's the gift that we want to offer you, is there, you can have this too. It's not just a more than a statistic special supply. Like
it's suitable and acquired by all. Like there's no stipulations, you don't have to walk a certain line, you don't have to have a perfect walk. It's the desire to change and knowing that there's a better way.
Yeah.
Not getting stuck in it and staying in it is the big one. Like realizing that it's okay to not be okay today, but you've made the right step today. And I'm making the effort to do the next right thing today. Is everything where you want it to be? Maybe not. But are you better than you were yesterday? Are you trying more today? Like making an effort. Like, I don't know. I feel like that's a lot. I mean, because with the label, you feel like you make the effort. I've showed up to the meeting. I've done this and done that, but nobody still said I'm proud of you. Nobody still said, good job for that today. So it's like, well, am I really even, what's the point?
Yeah.
And you start with that, and that's the mind game. That's Satan seeping back in because you are doing the next right thing. And that's Satan telling you that because you already feel the difference, because before when we wasn't trying, you didn't have those thoughts of, well, I probably shouldn't do that right now.
No.
Versus like when you started putting in the work, and then you have those moments of the crazy thought or the action, and then you feel that correction in your spirit. It's like, I ain't you no more. Wait, what was that?
Yeah, what was that? Yeah.
Okay, so that's change, and that's why we say to keep the community of the good people around you, because especially early on too, you need that positive reinforcement.
Sure.
Like, bro, it's okay. Like, we're doing it today. We're sober today.
Absolutely. And, a big thing I want to encourage people on is, it got grilled on me too, is I just, for some reason, I feel like a lot of our viewers, if they were anything like me, some of them might have not a great relationship. Maybe not relationship at all, but maybe they are at a church hurt phase, or, I prayed for this and it didn't happen, so I'm angry with God. And I just ask for our viewers just to slowly start. Like, I'm not pushing church religion down your throat, but I do feel like I heard a thing that says, he said, you can come into church smelling like weed, and some people that'd be outstanding. Like, huh? I know people that would literally stand up, probably walk away from them. But the message behind that, the most important part is showing up, because that's where, first off, he said to love the church like you love your bride. And what that will do is you're going to show up and you're going to get to hear this stuff. And I promise you, if you go and you ain't been in a while, you're going to hear the message that it's going to seem like a custom wrote message for you that day. It's so weird how it works, but you're going to get to hear the truth about love, and and the truth about what it looks like to walk with Christ. And slowly and surely you're going to start developing these relationships with these people that are in this. And like our community, just from this podcast, has started to slowly develop, and I'm meeting all these new people that are doing all these great things that, had I not followed my heart and done these set of things in which I've been called to do, that I've learned about as my walks progressed. I started slow and I dwelled here for a long time, but I'm slowly starting to learn what it looks like. So there's steps to this. I would just encourage y'all to, whether it be in the building or find one on the internet, just sit down and listen to a service, and just to give God a chance. Give him a talk. He loves second chances. That's the thing about my God, is he's very much a second God chance. Or a second chance God. I'm sorry, I said that backwards.
Without a doubt. We're based off second chances. If it wasn't for the second and the 45th chance, I probably wouldn't be here today.
Me neither. And I was telling Michael that while I was trying to prepare for this show, I did the verses about how that we place labels on each other, how it's been happening. So I decided to look up some instances of this is how we see us, but this is how God describes that he sees us. And this is just 10 different verses explaining of what he says. It says in Ephesians 2:10, he sees us as his handiwork. Matthew 5:14, he calls us the light of the world. Matthew 6:26, he values us more than the sparrows. Genesis 1:31, God sees his creation as very good. Isaiah 43:1, he calls us his, saying, you are mine. Zephaniah 3:17, he delights in us and rejoices over us. Jeremiah 29:11, he sees a future and a hope for us. Romans 8:17, he sees us as co-heirs with Christ. Deuteronomy 7:6, he sees us as his treasured possession. And 1 Peter 2:9, he sees us as his chosen people, a royal priesthood. I didn't hear a single negative thing in that.
One negative thing. I kept hearing that I was worthy and I'm do good things.
I had a lot more than them, Michael, and there was no negative things that I could find in that. So that's a big thing is with this friend that I gained, with this father that I gained that I never had, I get all these things, and this is how he sees me. Even when I was down and when I was out, he still only calls by good things, you know, and I'm grateful for that today, that these labels in this life, it doesn't weigh me down anymore. I don't have to defend myself when somebody over here says, well, he's this. Let them think, you know. I don't know where to go from there. I'm pretty fired up now, but my
that's
head's...
it. Like, don't get caught up in giving power to a narrative that you are not directing. Okay? Like, don't let whatever so-and-so over there down the block's talking about, because they don't know you. They don't know where you came from. They don't know what you've done today to become who you are. You know, don't give the power to that, because what the big book will tell us, and that the Bible will say the same thing. It'll be just differently worded. The big book doesn't promise that people will stop labeling you. It promises you no longer need their approval to focus on what you're doing next. So the focus will shift on what you do versus what they think. Mm-hmm. You know, so I'm not going to get caught up in worrying about what they're saying about me today, what I should be doing today. Am I being honest today? Am I being sober today? Am I being useful for today?
Yep.
You know, am I being the hands and feet that's willing to go out and serve the community? Am I that today? Am I a child of God that's standing on that? I'm not giving them power to that no more today. Yep. Don't give them the power. Like, the labels will weigh us down. Like, that was the biggest struggle for me. I mean, I kind of went through that just in a little bit of a season a couple of weeks ago when I first came out of surgery. You know, I mean, sitting around that first little bit, like, I went into that depression, and it just, all those, just, golly, well, this is just horrible. And, you know, I mean, I started to wallow for a minute, and that was all the enemy was like, yep, I got you where I want you, you know, you falling, so let me go ahead and kick you while you're down, versus me being like, you know what, it's just a season. Like, there's something in me in this to learn through this process. So I've flipped it into that. And, you know, it's become easier to go through my daily walk. Yep. The past week and a half, 2 weeks of, you know, becoming more independent and doing that. Like, I've seen more progression in my recovery in the past week. Like, I've pushed myself further. I've went further. You know, I went to therapy yesterday, and I was doing these exercises. Some stuff I ain't supposed to be doing yet, but I'm already doing it. And he's like, you know, you've moved so fast. I'm like, because I can't sit in it. I'm not going to allow this to hold me down. I know what I'm capable of doing. Same thing with our recovery. Mm-hmm. I know what I'm capable of. I know what God's called me to do. So therefore, I've shed that old skin of the label that you called me of unworthy and a lost cause. I'm no longer broken. I'm healed by His grace.
Yeah.
You know, I'm no longer unreliable. I'm a servant of God. I'm no longer always going to fail. but I'm striving every day for a better purpose. You know, like I no longer give anybody that power over me. That's not me today.
Amen. And you know what's crazy about that, when you step back and you think about what caused all that, it was just you repositioned where your faith was looking. You know, it went from us, especially me. I used to put all these ideas in my head of what these people should be doing and how they should be doing and how they should be treating, and I'd set myself up for all these situations that didn't happen. And then one day I learned you can't put your faith in the people. You know, it says it. Like, you just, one day you read it and you're like, you know what, that's right. Like, even myself, like, I'm going to let me down.
Yeah.
But all those things that you said just then, I was sitting there thinking, I was like, you know, it's all shifted when it went from us expecting this world to having the faith of the mustard seed,
right,
in a God that's going to control it all, and He's got us, you know. And that's the mindset that sprung all this. Is the growth from all the big book, from the Bible, from the recovery. That's your fruit.
Yep.
And that was pretty cool. Like, I literally just was sitting there thinking that while he was going through that. It was all just because we redirected our faith.
Done a shift.
Put it where it's supposed to be.
Yeah. So no longer do we have to be defined by a label. No longer do we have to give the world power over what we are capable of. So today, new labels that you can choose for yourself. I'm recovering. I'm sober. I'm a trusted servant. A person in spiritual progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection, is what the big book says. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. It's a progress, a daily step.
Yep.
So today you can be who you set yourself to be, who God calls you to be, not what the world calls you out to be. Don't give it any power.
What your job says you
right.
are. Just...
Labels don't define you. Actions today is what define you.
Absolutely.
Your past explains you. It doesn't sentence you. Your past explains you, but it doesn't sentence you. It's telling your testimony, but you're not sentenced to a life of torment and hell because of that. You're delivered, and now you have your mess has become your message. Your test has become your testimony.
That's what he does. It'll flip you on your head, and if you're at the point where you think, you know, this is it, there ain't nothing much more for me, I challenge you, because I bet there is, but you just haven't given him a chance. You know, it's that same old hole. I've only found one thing to fill it, and you know, and it's by doing that, it's given me a lot of the answers that I had unsolved that caused all this stuff in the first place, because I filled that hole with him.
Self-will.
He allowed me the access to those rooms that I didn't have access to before as a kid or as a teenager. You know, but now I got the answers, and I see the bigger picture, and it's he gives it to you on his own time, because we couldn't handle it all at once. Right. That's 100%. And I'm just thankful for all this. You know, I'm thankful that I'm not having to label myself as a liar, a cheater, a thief, all this stuff. No, because I don't have to do that no more. But you know what that come by? I messed up. I'm sorry. Forgive me.
Nope.
And then the next time when I did the same thing and I was praying, I messed up. It bothered me more, because I already said I wouldn't do that.
Right.
And that's the progress, man. That's the progress. And you're going to mess up.
Yeah.
But if you have somewhere to put your faith, there's certain things that we're called to do with that faith. I promise you that slowly but surely you're going to start one by one, just like I have, one by one thing at a time. Just constant self-improvement.
Constant spiritual renewing of the mind and an inventory of what you're doing.
Amen.
If you stay in check with that, we're doing the next right thing. And when we don't, thus you can get stagnant with it. And then you can feel that the creep in. You might not do certain things or say certain things, but it's gonna cause a shift.
Yep.
You know? And then when you check it and it lightens that load again, you're like, man, if I'm just staying in check daily with my walk, keeping an inventory of what's going on, everything moves so much smoother.
Yep.
You know, I mean, I noticed it the other day. You know, I had to think Jack's done something. I reacted, and then after that, God checked my spirit and how he, you know, he said, "You're not that dude anymore. You aren't who you were raised by. You were different." And you know, swallowing my pride, setting him down, and explaining that I'm sorry because I'm not him anymore. I'm new because of you, you know. But that was so much growth, you know,
Sure.
and that was like showing that I'm not that label of who I was destined to be. I'm not going to be just like them. I'm not raising him to be just like me. You know, we are different. We're creating a new change.
Amen.
So that's that. I mean, I feel like we.
Yeah, I feel like that's a good place to wrap it up before we start really
go
shelling.
somewhere else.
Yeah. But I'd like to say just one more time, if you'd like to help with the clothing drive, just you can contact me, you can contact Michael, you can reach through Facebook. We got email, just whatever you need. And we'd greatly appreciate it. Like I said, they're needing mainly thermals, boots, anything warm for men and women, adult, and hygiene items. Yes, sir. If you're doing underwear, socks, they prefer that to be new, please. And I thank you for being with us. We kind of had to jump a day early, so we're unprepared, but we feel like we go back and forth a little better when we're a nervous wreck.
Yeah, I think pressure does as well.
Yeah, so I'd just like to thank y'all for being a part of this. Looking forward to the future, see what he keeps doing.
You're not who you are. You don't have to carry the labels, man. Let it go.
Amen.
We love y'all. See you next week.
Love you.